Hey, welcome back. And in this next part of the South Park Dialogue series, what we're going to learn is we've already created by this point, or you should have created, a character that's ready to move around on the screen. If you haven't, if you skipped ahead to this video, we've got a file ready for you, so don't worry about that. But what we're going to do in this section is we're going to create multiple versions of our character so that we can make them talk. If we scroll through this movie and the file I have open from the ones that you should have downloaded by this stage, I've reopened SP Final. We opened that in our first video so you can see what you're creating. And I just opened that one again so that you can see as we scrub through here, you can see what's happening is we're showing different faces of our character here. So there's a different mouth position as we go through. So essentially what we're doing is we're creating multiple cardboard cutouts. We're creating like a cutout that we're just going to swap and show a new version every time a new sound is said. And that's what we're going to create. You'll notice here that I have a little guide, and we have 7 different visuals, 7 different versions that we're going to create, which will make up almost any word you can think of in the English language. But enough of me just talking about it. Let's actually start creating it. So I am going to open the file from the ones that you downloaded. I'm going to start with, if you don't already have your own character, you can open up O3 SP mouth positions.fla. So I'm going to open up that one. And in here, I just realized I opened the wrong file. Check that. Why don't we open up O2 no mouth positions? Because we actually have to draw them. That would make more sense now, wouldn't it? So we're going to open up O2 SP no mouth positions, and you'll notice that there are no mouth positions. Crazy. It's still a graphic, so this character is a graphic, and that's something that we did in the last series, or the last video, I should say. And when I double click, I'm going to go into isolation mode, and there are all of my layers. I'm just going to go back to the main stage. I'm going to move my character off to the side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that guide right here so that I know what I'm drawing. So just very quickly, I'm going to open up the file O5 mouth position guide. And I'm just going to take this text box right here and I'm going to copy it. I'm going to close this file because I don't need it anymore. And what I'm going to do in this file is I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to call it guide. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste that text box. I'll just put it up here in the corner so that I've got it for reference as we do our video. Okay. At this point, you may want to save your file. And I'm just going to double click on my character. So now I've gone into isolation mode, and now I'm going to start adding mouths. I want to make a new layer just above the head layer here for the mouths. So I'm going to type mouth. Now what I like to do when I'm working with something like this is I want to make sure that I don't manipulate anything else I've drawn. I'm happy with my drawing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lock everything else down except for the mouth layer. So we're going to draw 7 different mouths. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just select the first one. The first mouth shape that you would make is M, B, or P. We want to show our character with a closed mouth. So I'm going to make really simple mouths for this one. If you want to get more complex, you're more than welcome to. But what I'm going to do for when they say M is I'm just going to draw a straight line. I'm done. That's it. Pretty simple, right? Let's move on to Ah. These 3 mouths are actually going to be really similar. So when I go to frame 2, so we're saying this is going to be the second version of our character. What I'm going to do is on frame 2, I'm going to insert a blank keyframe. I'm going to draw a mouth. Notice our character disappeared because we haven't extended our animation. So what I want you to do before we move on here is we're just going to select all of our frames along frame 30. So every single layer along frame 30, just make sure that they're all selected. I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose Insert Frame. Okay, so now our character will be there as we insert more mouths. So on frame 2, I want to draw my character saying, ah. I'm going to do that with the rectangle primitive tool. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to select frame 2, and I'm going to draw a rectangle, and I'm going to fill it with white. So I have a black outline with a white fill. Now obviously that does not really look like the character saying ah. Kind of looks like he's being censored. He was swearing or something. So let's not keep that on the screen. I'm just going to zoom in here so you can see what I'm about to do. I'm going to take my black arrow tool, so my move tool, and because it's the rectangle primitive tool, you have access to these 4 corner points. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to round them a little bit. Okay. And give the mouth a shape that looks a little bit more like he's saying ah. Now you can adjust it. Yours doesn't have to look exactly like this one. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my line tool and I'm going to draw a straight line down the middle. Now you'll notice right now it looks like our character is kind of saying "er," like he's mad or something. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase that gap. If he was saying ah, his mouth would be open wider. So why don't we just increase that stroke a little bit? And you'll notice, oh, we're getting these round edges on the side. That's not really good. Well, with the line still selected, the option here for cap, set it to none. And that will straighten out the line for you. And now we've got something that looks like he's saying ah. And you've already got a character that's talking now. Mama. Now you didn't think you'd get singing too on this video. You lucky dog. That's it. We now have and we have the character saying ah. Well, E and er are just going to be more closed. Go to frame 3, insert a keyframe this time, and what you can do, I'm going to zoom in so you can see it again, just take that mouth position and bring the stroke down a little bit. So it looks like the character's saying E. So now we've got ah, E, and now for we'll insert a keyframe again on frame 4, and I'll just make that gap smaller. Not too small, maybe about, let's go with there. We'll zoom out here, let's see how it's looking. Ah, E, Not bad. Now again, these are very, very simplistic mouths. You can make them a little bit more advanced, but for now, this is going to be fine. The other thing you want to make sure is make sure it's aligned. We don't want the character's mouth to be here, but then O or ah is like the mouth's jumping all over the place. So one of the things you really want to do when you're doing this too, make sure that the mouth is kind of staying in the same position. Frame 5 is going to be one of our easier ones, almost as, well, probably as easy as the M. We're going to do O. So for that, I don't want this mouth at all. We're going to insert a blank keyframe on frame 5. I'm going to take my oval tool and I'm just going to set my fill to black. Now here's where I want to make sure, am I lined up? O. That's not bad. You may have to adjust a little bit and move things around. Row, row, row your boat. Okay. Sorry, I'll stop singing. So now you've got the O mouth shape. And the only thing we have to do now is the last two on versions 6 and version 7. So th or l, and then f or v. These are the last mouth shapes that we need to make. So for this one, we're actually going to use a mouth shape we've already created. I'm going to go over to frame 4. This is going to lend itself really well to this th or l mouth shape. So what I'm going to do, because everything else is locked, so I can drag a selection box, I don't have to worry about anything else, I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to go to frame 6, and I'm going to insert a blank keyframe. I'm now going to right click, paste in place. So there's the mouth that we just created. Your and th are very close. The only thing we really need is a tongue coming out here. So if I zoom in on it, what I can do is I'm going to use my oval primitive tool this time. And what I'm going to do is I'll draw an oval. Now you'll see mine's already been kind of set up here. Yours might look a little bit like this. So what you can do with your oval, and we'll change the color and fill in a second, is grab the right hand side and drag it up and over. So what that will do, so this is the oval primitive tool. I'm just going to drag it up and over, and then I might use my free transform tool to kind of shrink that up a little bit because that's a huge tongue. And I'm just going to line it up with the center. Now you may have to play around with the stroke width. I might want to make that weight a little bit less, like I'll make it 1 to make it a little bit thinner. And then what you want to do is change the fill color. So let's grab something that might be a little bit more of a tongue color. Get a lot of orange, here's some pink, here's some red. Maybe both there, and that might work. Okay. Now we could leave it like this. You could add a little bit more detail if you want. I might grab the pencil tool and just kind of draw, you know, that little line that might come down the middle if you really want to get fancy. Okay, you can kind of play around with that. So again, this is just a semicircle that I've put on top of our mouth shape on frame 6. Low, low. You get the idea. The last mouth shape I have to make is the f or v. Here we're going to give the illusion that the lips are being tucked underneath the character's top teeth. So I'm just going to use this mouth shape again. I'm going to insert a keyframe. I'll zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing. This is frame 7 now. I have a keyframe on frame 7. I'm going to get rid of the tongue because it's not needed. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to select these two. I'm going to make it all kind of sandy. I'm going to break it apart, and I'm going to delete the bottom half. So now it's we're almost there. Here's the top teeth, but we have to give the illusion that the lip is being tucked underneath. And again, I'm doing this in a very easy manner. So I'm just going to grab my pencil tool, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add little marks to give the illusion that the lip is being tucked underneath there. So the character is saying v, like very. And those are our 7 different mouth positions. N, A, E, and I'm going to actually lock it so we don't get those little selection handles. N, A, E, O, th, and v. And that's it. Now you're going to notice one thing here though, is that our character is kind of, neutral. They're not showing an expression. And we'll deal with that in the next video session. But let's see how this is going to get implemented. If we go back to scene 1, here's what you can do now. If you select your character, in the properties, you're going to notice a looping feature. I'm going to set that to single frame. And now what I can do is I can tell Flash, of those 7 versions that we made, which one do you want to see right now? So single frame. So if I click first, I'll choose frame 2, which is ah. Now he's saying ah. And that's what's going to stay on the screen. I could change that to, let's get him to say oh. And there you go. And that's what we're going to be doing in the final session. We're going to be choosing different mouth shapes. So in the next lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to start adding a little bit of expressions, because right now our character is a little bit neutral.